Hello and welcome to the fifth of six Tuesday tune-up trainings. Today we're going to be talking about how to create compelling photos from your smartphone. And I'm very pleased to welcome our guest presenter today. Marcia Phillips has been a photographer for many, many years. She's also the owner of F11 Photo in Bozeman, and she does photography in multiple formats. Today, she's going to be talking specifically about mobile photography, but using her vast array of expertise and experience across all the different platforms. So, Marcia, welcome virtually to Park County. Thank you for joining us today. I invite you to say anything that you wanted to share about your photography background, or if you wanted to launch right into the slides.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm so happy to have people to talk to again. It's been a while since we've been able to get together. So I'm really excited about telling you about iPhone photography and mobile photography. It's an area I'm very passionate about. I enjoy it so much, and it really opens a lot of creative doors. And I want to bring you all through those doors with me today. And if you've got questions, please do speak up, and Barb's going to help me with getting those questions answered during the presentation as well as after the presentation. And if there's something special that you need some help with, maybe we can cover that toward the end if we've got some time. And I'm guessing that many of you are going to be using these photos for social media. So I've spent a little bit of time thinking about the social media part, since that's so important these days for organizations in general. So here we go. Thanks for coming. My little company over in Bozeman's been around for almost 40 years now, and I've been affiliated with it for most of that time. Been doing iPhone photography since the iPhone 5. And we're not really going to talk about any fancy equipment today, because at the base, photography is simply writing with light. And we're going to learn about that and take advantage of it with whatever device we happen to be using at the time. I've had the pleasure to spend a lot of time around some very good professional photographers throughout my career. And Daniel J. Cox is one of those. And I traveled with he and his wife, and he really did say, I'd rather be lucky than good in regard to photography. Turns out he's really good, but luck doesn't hurt, and preparation is the basis of having good luck. And we're going to have good luck at the end of this presentation. As long as you're prepared, you're actually going to get those shots that people think, oh, how did they do that? For those of you who shoot Android out there, I'd like you to take a minute and be sure you're shooting the largest file size you can. And the reason you want to shoot a large file is it allows you to crop later. It allows you to use it in different formats for different purposes. You can print it, you can use it in an ad, you can use it on social media. You can always make things smaller, but not bigger. So take the biggest picture you can, and there's 4 little steps there on how to do that. So you touch the control icon, choose more options, pick the largest size in your list, and you need to do that for the front camera and the rear camera. They have separate settings. If you're shooting an Apple product, Apple has a little file format they use that is really small, and it captures a huge image, and you don't have to set anything. Just don't even worry about it. However, the new file format can be hard to share with certain devices. So in your Photos app, you go to the settings, and you want to scroll all the way to the bottom of that settings page and make sure you check automatic under the heading transfer to Mac or PC. And what that does is your phone converts the images to regular old JPEGs when you share them, so that they can be used very easily on any platform. It's seamless, you won't even notice it. The native camera apps are simple, they're very effective, and they're on your thing that's in your pocket. That photo on the left was actually taken through that gob of goo that's my phone, I'm sorry to say, but it's something that you really need to do every time you go shoot, is just quick clean your phone. I'm going to go through some basic settings with you. And if you have your iPhone, you can open your camera, follow along if you want to. At the top of the iPhone controls, you've got 4 little icons. And the flash icon is very straightforward. That's if you want flash, or you want a flashlight, or you want to leave it off, or want it auto. Flash doesn't work real swell. It's always better to go somewhere where there's great natural light. Live photo is kind of a special photo setting. It shoots video a second and a half before and a second and a half after your still picture. And I'm going to show you why that's cool in just a second. I'll show you some options. The self timer at the top is really handy. And if you are in a position where you're taking selfies out for your assignments, remember you can shoot more than one picture at the end of your self timer. And sometimes it's that second picture that's really good. So use your self timer and set it to take 2 pictures. The far control there is for filters, and I would ignore that. I don't recommend using filters while you're shooting. If you want to filter, you want to do that after the fact. So this is an example of a live photo and how it can be edited on your iPhone. On the far right is just the standard little video. You can choose the second one that says loop, and it'll just play the video over and over and over again. And there's also bounce, which can be fun. It's like the little Instagram videos where they play forwards and then backwards. It's very cute for some things. And the one on the far side there is called long exposure. And that's how you make that beautiful, fuzzy, soft water that you can't do really any other way on a mobile device. So if you're out taking pictures where there's water running, consider using your live photo, and you'll get some really cool results with that. The other thing it can do is, this is a little example of the video. So I'm going to start it here. You can see that I can make it rain those leaves over and over and over again. And I can use an app to make those into a GIF for social media. Next, I'm going to cover the items at the bottom of your screen. So the Photos app is in the lower corner next to the shutter button. And on the far side is your camera switcher. And that just switches it from front to rear. And I'm going to show you some cool reasons to switch it to the front camera later that are not selfies. So there's other things you can do with that camera. There are a couple of different things that happen when you press the shutter release button. If you tap it, you just get a single photo, but if you hold it down, you get a burst. And burst is really great for shooting action. If you've got some things going on at an event where there's kids running or animals running or whatever's going on and you're not sure you can stop the action, shoot a burst. You can get up to 30 frames. You can pick the one you like the best, and away you go. There's a second shutter release on your phone, and that's the volume up control. If you press volume up, it'll fire the camera when the camera's open. It's handy if you're turned horizontally to shoot a photo. The other thing that does is if you have your headphones plugged in, you can use your headphone volume up to fire the camera. So you can stabilize the camera, and then you don't have to touch it in order to fire it, which is kind of cool for certain things. These controls are what allow you to change how your picture turns out. So these are kind of important, and these all show up overlaid over the top of your picture. So that little plus sign in the middle is a level, and you would want to use that if you were photographing a document, for example. You wanted to take a copy of a document or a copy of a historical photo someone wanted to let you have to use, but didn't want to give you the actual photograph. It works pretty well. And they come out nicely when they're level. They're sharp, edge to edge, corner to corner. The square comes up when you tap on the screen, and that is a focus and exposure locking point. What that does is it allows you to move the focus off of the center. If you had it's common in a horizontal composition where the point of interest is off to one side, you can actually manually move it over there to make sure the thing you want to be emphasized is sharply focused. That also brings up that lighten or darken little sunshine icon there. And if your picture needs to be lighter, you just slide your finger up. If it needs to be darker, you slide your finger down. I find you don't really have to use that very much, but there are occasions where you're in strong backlight and you want the person's face to show better, where you need to lighten it is the most common.
Marcia, can you backtrack for a moment and
yes,
more specifically, the question is, how do you get the level?
It comes up when you tap and hold in the center.
Okay.
So when you tap it for focus lock and you hold your finger there for a second, you'll automatically get the level.
Okay. And what you're referring to is the level is that little box, and to the right side of it, the sun icon that slides up and down.
Actually, the level itself is only that plus sign in the middle. And there's multiple plus signs when you're out of level. So this is in level because you can only see one. If I was off, I'd see two. And that allows you to line it up and get it perfectly level.
Ah, I've seen two before and wondered what it meant. So thank you.
Yes, yes. On the lens selection button down there that says 1x, where you change from lens to lens on your phone, if you hold down on that, you can actually zoom also. And it's more desirable to change from lens to lens than it is to zoom, but don't forget that you have zoom. Sometimes you really need it. And it looks pretty darn good up to about a zoom of 6x. They go to 10. I don't think they look great at 10, but they look pretty darn good up to 6. So ideally, walk up as close as you can. And if you're not close enough, first tap to get a closer lens. If that doesn't work, hold down and zoom. You'll find it's really handy to have. So on the camera modes, I'm going to go back one here. That little mode selection there where it says video, photo, portrait. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. You can do a time-lapse video, a slow motion video. You can do a regular video, including up to 4K. There's actually been movies made with iPhones in 4K, which is just cool. In the regular photo app, you'll get rectangular photos and live photos. In the portrait mode, you'll get rectangles with some cool background effects. Square is, of course, square, and panorama is also pretty cool. And the reason I'm referring to these as shapes and sizes is just for Facebook, there are 8 different possibilities to post to a Facebook page, and they are in 6 different sizes. So it's helpful sometimes to think about where you're going to use the photo. Instagram prefers square. Except they have a vertical format in addition to the square format. So think about where you're going to be using the pictures and choose a shape and size that's compatible with where you're going to use it. Let me show you this portrait mode real quick. It's super cool. And that looks delicious. So what the portrait mode does is it allows you to control the background. If I just shot that with my phone in a standard mode, you'd see that yard behind it instead of the product. And I wanted the product to show in this particular case. So I used portrait mode to blur the background and put the emphasis on my subject. I might also want to use that from time to time if there's something back there I don't really want people to notice or see. It's a good way to hide something. Like I'm sure there's plenty of weeds back there. So it's a good way to control the background. The object needs to be mostly still. And I've noticed that if it's a finely textured object like plants or trees and the wind is blowing, it doesn't work super well for that, unless it's the background that's blowing. I lived on your side of the hill for 3 years, is why I mentioned that. This is another function of this cool portrait mode. That picture was just shot in my kitchen. He's leaning on the kitchen counter. Our kitchen lights are there. Our stove is behind him. And I've managed to remove all those things by using the portrait mode. There are 6 different modes in portrait mode now, and you can choose them after the fact, after you shoot. So this one is really cool, where it removes the background to black. There's a new one where it'll change the photo to a black and white and give you a high key white background, which is also pretty neat. I would encourage you to try this when you have time, because it's a more dramatic effect than just a picture of my husband in the kitchen, right? So play with this mode a little bit. I think you'll like it. Here's a pano. The panoramic mode is really great for doing landscapes. If you want to do something special on one of your outdoor locations, this is really a neat way to do it. And these files are huge. I've actually printed this particular picture 12 inches by 3 feet, and it looked fantastic. So if you want to do something special for somebody who's working with you on a property, if you want to do something special of a property that is part of your responsibility, this is really a cool option. Just be aware that it's a big file, so you'll need to offload that probably. And it's not super friendly for social media. You can post them on Facebook as those panoramas that people can look around in, and that might be the only real social use for these. One of the best things you can do for your photography is scout your locations. It's really helpful, even if you can just get there a couple minutes early. Pop in, walk around, make sure your battery's charged, and look for the locations where your people are going to interact. If it's possible to direct those into good lighting, that will help your pictures so much. And I know sometimes you can't move the areas where people are going to be interactive, but if you can get them in good light, that's super important. And practice a couple of angles and open your camera and look through your camera so that you know what's going to happen when you start shooting that with people. You'll feel so much more prepared. In order to get Dan Cox's good luck, some of the things you can do is to keep your camera app ready all the time. There's a way to launch your camera on your iPhone without having to actually open your screen. If you pick up your iPhone and look at the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a camera icon, and just tap that and your camera's launched right then, super fast. There's a setting in your camera that you can use called last used. And to find that, you'll go into the settings icon under camera and just choose last used. And that way you can set things up before you start shooting in a way that'll make it fast for you to just go to work. And remember, you've had that thing in your pocket a bunch. Just give that lens a little love and shoot. Eye level is a super important thing. Even if we all turned on our cameras right now, eye level cameras are going to be a little bit more flattering and friendly than cameras that are high or low. So if it's kids and pets, I really encourage you to go to their eye level, so you're not looking down on the kids and pets. Do vary your perspective a little bit for all your events, but remember that eyes are one of the things that we really want to see in focus. And it doesn't matter to us as humans if they're people's eyes or animals' eyes. The thing we want to see is that sharply focused eye. So use your focus lock, tap to lock it where it belongs, and grab some shots at eye level to your kids and your animals. And even if there's not a lot of light, if the eye is in focus, we're going to accept that photo as something we understand. If this little kitty shot had been focused on the nose instead, I think it would have ended up in the trash. So watch the eyes and follow them, whether it's people or animals. Here's a little high angle shot example. And what makes this one fun is the diagonals in it. And we've got nice eyes, we've got flattering light. This happened to be at a macro workshop, one of our instructors. And look at that plant being nice and sticking right up there into that sunrise light. So do pay attention to eyes and angles when you're out in the field. And remember, whatever you planned could maybe not happen the way you think it's going to. 2 weeks ago, I thought I was going to shoot all these beautiful pictures of my plum tree in bloom, and we had a windstorm and they all ended up on the ground. It just stripped my plum tree of every bloom. So what I did was I chucked them on my light table. It was fun. It was different. And I have a little memory of this year's plum bloom that's different from what I would have had if my plan had actually worked out. So if things don't work out the way you want, you can always shoot a different way and you can experiment. It's free to shoot with these things. It's not like film where it costs a fortune to find out what you took. So I'd encourage you to try different things. And I probably took 15 or 20 different pictures of my little blooms on my light table. And it was fun. That selfie camera, you can do some really fun stuff with your selfie camera angle-wise. So remember, while it's not super cool to have the angle up underneath the nose, there are other occasions where having an angle up is really fun. And you can do that even, I can think of some other scenics like rock art out in the field where sometimes you can't really see it. You can actually use that camera to look and see if it's worth crawling underneath. The picture would have been extremely difficult without that selfie camera on. And it just wasn't flattering light otherwise, but it turned out kind of fun because I've got an interesting angle and another diagonal. Diagonals really do some cool things for your photos. They create these leading lines that help your eye discover more of the photo, and they create movement and interest. So play with diagonal lines. If you level things every time, sometimes they get boring and static, and that's especially true with things that run through the middle of a picture. And horizon lines, for example, need to be really level, but they shouldn't be in the middle of the picture. So think about that when you're framing your landscapes outdoors, is try moving that horizon line off of the very dead center of the photo. Believe it or not, your iPhone camera takes wonderful close-up photos. You want to get as close as you can with the phone. After that, use the tap function to get closer with the lenses, and then you can zoom after that. But if you're doing close-up, remember that what you leave out is important as what you put in. So balance your compositions. If you look at this one, it's got these little corners that kind of keep that square in context. Each corner has a little sweep to it, and you can certainly tell a lot about that poppy by looking at that without seeing the whole poppy. Just when you think it's getting too dark to shoot, wait another couple of minutes. Sometimes right after sunset is when some of the best light happens. You need to have some battery left to make it that long, but watch for the light right after sunset. It is spectacular. It's very flattering for people. It is flattering to faces in particular, because it's soft. It doesn't necessarily show every contour in our faces, which it can be a good thing. And the color's quite pleasing. So watch for that light at the end of the day. And we kind of touched on this before we started, but there are so many times when a story needs to be told, but it can't be told by putting a camera in someone's face. And there are other ways to tell those stories, and they require a little bit of thought. You're still trying to capture the emotion in a shot. We're not trying to capture the perfect photo. We're trying to capture the emotion. And there are many ways to show that. This is, I think, one of my favorite photos of my brother and his wife at their daughter's wedding, and there's no faces in it at all. And I think it's really easy for someone who was never there to understand that special little moment that they were having and make a nice guess at what the event was. So remember that you can use hands, you can use table settings, you can use an empty table setting, you can use shadow and light to create emotional reactions. And it's harder than putting a camera in someone's face, but sometimes it's even more powerful. So when you're in a working situation where you can't show a face, think about what you can show and work with that. I'm sure that if you think about your workday, there's times during your workday where you could do this very easily. Just to talk about maybe a project you're working on. Maybe it's your tools rather than the people. It might be an empty room instead of a room with people. So think about the ways you can show emotion and make connections without having to have a face or a smile or a pair of eyes even on there. If you are doing all the social media posting and editing the images, sometimes there's a lot of pressure there. So if you have people you can reach out to talk with them and show them some of your work, I think you'll get a lot further faster. And you could even email me a couple of images if you want at some point. There needs to be a set of working guidelines in order to get these kinds of jobs done and get them done without stirring the pot. You know, parents do not want to come across a picture of their kids on Facebook or Instagram that they don't know about. We had to have policies like this for our own social posting. And we did require releases. And we also wanted people to know what was going to be posted. So we would actually send them the picture first, just so they weren't surprised and go, hey, that's me. In some cases, we actually asked people to help us out by providing pictures to us at an event. And we also asked for a release in that case. So there's going to be a lot of different cameras around most events these days. And don't hesitate to ask for those. People are generally flattered, but think about whether you should get a release, and you probably should. How old should kids be before they're included in photos of your events for your organization? If you're working with kids, you can do a few things to help that out. You can photograph them from the back. You can use apps to make them less recognizable, but still show a fun photograph. And you definitely need parental permission, and have a good conversation in your organization about what you want to accomplish with those pictures and how to get them. There might also be some legal restrictions and other special circumstances that you should be discussing in your organizations to make sure you're getting what you need to get.
Marcia, question for you about release forms. Can you point us towards a template for that? Is it something that can be Googled easily? Do you have one you'd be willing to share?
You can Google it, and there are a bunch of them out there that you can download for free. The other thing you can do is there's actually an app that you can download and put it right on your phone, and you can actually have them scribble on your phone, and you don't have to carry the paper around. I would lean that direction for things you do out in the field. If you're doing things like a workshop where you've got people signing up, I would include them as part of the sign up so that you don't have to go back later, and just put a checkbox on there. I don't want my picture used. Check this box. No problem. We won't. But otherwise, sign it. And I could send you some examples of that one. I think in all the years we did that, we only had one person ever check the box that said, I don't want my picture used. Don't take pictures of me. So, any other questions on that topic? The other big monkey in the room with mobile photography is we tend to get a lot of pictures trapped on phones, and they never get where they need to go. So I want to tell you about the share button on your iPhone. It is so cool. The share button is that little square with the arrow on it, and it comes up in all sorts of places on your phone. If you have a photo or a document, you can actually use that share button no matter where you access that document or photo from. Like, someone texted you a photo. If you tap on it, it'll open in its own window and you'll get the share button. You can save it to your camera roll. You can send it to someone else. If it's a document, you can do the same thing. You can open a PDF in a different app that you downloaded off the internet. It's a super powerful button. It's also a way that you can share photos and have people who are taking pictures for or with you to Dropbox. You can create albums with that button. You can duplicate photos. And does anybody else here do all their editing on their phone? I get like 6 versions of a picture, and I have one that I've resized for Instagram, and I can't tell which one. So underneath that share button, you can actually view things like the file size to help you get the right picture. I did a couple of share things here this morning. So I hit the share button from my Photos app, And what came up there was I could share it by AirDrop. I could share it by messages. I could add it to a note. I can send it by Gmail. And that little AirDrop function is super, super cool. If you're in an Apple work environment, you can just hit AirDrop and you can send it right to your computer and vice versa. It is super easy. If you have an environment where there are people with Apple and Android, but you want to be able to use that kind of functionality, like send a photo to the computer, there's a neat little app called InstaShare, and you can see the icon on that second image there. And it's available for your computer, regardless of Windows or Mac, and for your mobile device, regardless of Apple or Android. And it'll kind of hook that same kind of connectivity up. And you can see there's Dropbox there too. You can send images right to Dropbox. If you scroll below a photo after you hit the share button, look at all these other things that come up there on the left-hand panel. That's just a smattering. It's not even the entire list of what you can do right from that share button. So explore that a little bit and learn what it will do, because it will save you so much time and make your life really easy in terms of getting your cool pictures where they need to go. On the sharing department, we talked about AirDrop and InstaShare. Those of you on an iPhone can also use iCloud. And the way that works is if you have it turned on, it'll upload your photos to iCloud. And if you have a Mac, it's quite easy to get them back to the Photos app on your Mac. You just turn it on your Mac. There is an app for Windows for a PC. Most of my friends who have it tell me it's very flaky. So I'm not sure it's the right answer for getting it back to the computer, but it will give you a backup method, and it will get some space back on your iPhone if you're running short of space. Dropbox would be my #1 recommendation on how to move your images around. If you have a Dropbox account, the owner of that account can set up a folder for your event or a folder for your people, and you can share that with them, and they can just upload full-size files right to Dropbox. You'll get the pictures where they need to go. You can let your social media person get into that. Super cool. There's another program called just Box, not Dropbox. And they actually have a HIPAA compliant application if anyone needs that. You can email. It's a little slow, and there's file size limits. For example, that panorama is too big to email. It can't be done in the full size. So it'll work, and it works well for a few things, but I wouldn't want to use it all the time. Text messaging is the one everybody knows how to do, and it is the last choice method of moving images around. And the reason I don't like it is you have no idea what you're going to get on the other end. Your carrier determines how much of your picture is going to go from you to the person receiving your text message, and you can't change it. You can't do anything about it. Sometimes it might be big, but sometimes not. So if it's the only way, do it. Better to have it than not. But if you've got another way to send it, I would use any other way first. Some of you might even have USB drives for your devices. It's still a little bit hit and miss in terms of what you can do and not do with those, but I think you'll be able to use them later easier than you can now. And then do yourself a favor and be a really good curator, or you'll end up with 25,000 pictures on your phone in a heartbeat. Don't be afraid to throw things away. And if you're on an iPhone, remember they'll be in the trash for a month. So you can always go get them out if you went, oops, I shouldn't have done that. What questions do you all have? We're coming up, I think, on the end of our time, but I'd love to take a few questions if anyone has any.
Thank you so much for that, Marcia. That was very wide-ranging, and I look forward to watching the recording with my phone in hand. We are at the 1:45 mark, so if there are people who need to log off and get going, we understand. But Marcia, if you're available to stick around for a few more questions, that would be terrific. Somebody had a question earlier on, wondering whether her phone camera may not have all of the options that you're talking about. So I can say like
I
a
know
overall, what most recent iPhones, for example, have the full array of features.
most of them have it as long as you can go to the current operating system. There are cameras that only have one lens, but they still have zoom, so you can still zoom them. But it is the operating system that actually facilitates a lot of these features. So if you're updating your phone, chances are you have them.
Okay. Anyone else have a question for Marcia? Somebody's saying they didn't find all those features on their iPhone 6.
So you have to go to a 6 Plus to have absolutely everything. And your 6 will be, you cannot update an iPhone 6 to the current operating system. The oldest phone that updates fully is a 6 Plus. So you might not have quite all of those, but you'll have a good bunch of them. I don't think you'll have portrait mode on there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I concur. I feel like portrait mode is the most recent cool rollout. I have a iPad, and sometimes I like to shoot photos with my iPad, mostly because it just feels like I'm seeing a bigger image to get started. Is that just a trick of the eye, or am I actually getting a superior photo by shooting it on my iPad?
So I think it's kind of, the answer is kind of both in a couple ways. One is it is easier to compose on that nice big bright screen. Typically, the iPad camera is not quite as good from a technical standpoint, the sensor that's in it, the lenses that are on it, as what's on your phone. So I tend to use my iPad for things where I'm going to work well within the range of what the iPad can do. For example, I like to shoot time-lapse video on my iPad because it does HD video really well. But many of the other things I will go ahead and continue to shoot my phone just because my sensor's bigger, it's better, and my lenses are a little bit more capable.
So the other question we have, if somebody was actually considering upgrading, would you recommend that they got a new iPad, a newer version iPad, or is still getting the newest version phone? Is that still going to be your best bet?
Currently, the phone does still have a little bit better capability. And surprisingly, the chip that actually runs the phone is a more powerful chip because we really demand a lot of them. So they operate faster. So if you're going to do photography, the phone is definitely a little bit better than the iPad. It's a little more durable.
Oh, okay. As long as you remember to clean that lens.
Yes, clean that lens.
What about, I've seen people posting on Facebook the 3D photos. What is your thought on that new 3D photo technology? I don't have a I don't have a current enough version of iPhone that I can do that, but I have seen other people post those.
I think right now it has kind of a shine on it because it's new, and it's not quite as easy to do and easy to look at, so it makes it different. But I'm not
Mhm.
sure I would switch systems just to get that.
Mhm.
You know, it's ultimately a matter of getting the scroll to stop, right? Somebody's scrolling through and you need to get them to stop.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure 3D does a much better job of that. You know, it's like putting the panoramas up. They're super cool when you take the time to stop and look around them, but the only thing that tells you to stop is this funny little icon. So I'm
Mhm.
not sure they're super effective.
Excellent point. Uh, I want to take this moment to plug next week's training, which will be on taking videos from your phone. And I know there's a lot of theories out there that when you're scrolling through, if you see a video, that is something that will get you to get people to stop and look. So
That's one of the cool tricks of the live photo is you can do a tiny little
video,
GIF and people will stop.
yeah,
They're fun.
yeah. I was hiking in Yellowstone yesterday and did some live photos of waterfalls, which just really captured both the waterfall. It was a waterfall with a thermal feature near it, so it captured both the moving water and the rising steam.
Steam. Yeah.
Yeah, we're lucky to have so many great subjects nearby.
Yes.
Well, I see there are some people who are still logged in, but I don't see any additional photos. I don't see any additional questions on
Okay.
the chat line. If somebody has been trying to ask a question using your audio, it looks like everyone is still muted. So I'm going to give a final call for any questions, either by text or voice. And seeing none, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Marcia once again for taking the time to assemble these slides and walk us step by step through all those different features on our phones, which, given how often those phones are in our hands, I think for many of us that was a great introduction to things we perhaps didn't even know that we had so easily at hand. So thank you so much for that, Marcia. We will be making this recording available on the Park County Community Foundation website. That might take a couple days, but in the meantime, most of the recordings from our previous Tuesday tune-up trainings are already available. Thanks again, Marcia. We
Thanks for
really
the
appreciate
invitation.
the feedback, and we've gotten some very nice comments. Thank you. So informative, excellent. I look forward to the recording. Great information and very helpful.
Wonderful. Thanks, you guys.
So thank you so much. Take care,
Have
everyone.
a
Enjoy
great day.
the afternoon and go out and get some great live photos of the coming snowfall.
Yes. Spring in the Rockies, right?
There you go.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much, Marcia. I really appreciate it.